Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Korra news update video, and this time out we have the description and release date for Legend of Korra Runes of the Empire Part 2. Obviously we got the Unbalanced Part 3 stuff actually last week, and as expected, because Part 3 and Part 1 of Runes of the Empire have their release dates like a week apart, it was roughly expected that the Part 2 Runes of the Empire stuff would be revealed relatively soon. And we have it, except we don't have a cover yet. It does say cover coming soon, but I think they pretty much put that up there for anything that doesn't have a cover yet. But realistically, if they have the description and the date, the cover really should be anytime soon. So I don't think we'll be waiting too long for the cover. But anyway, the description is actually very interesting for this one. But first up, the release date, as you can see here, October 8th, 2019. So May 21st, 2019 is a release date for Runes of the Empire Part 1. So this is roughly a 4.5 month gap between books. So that's actually quite reasonable. Pretty much standard 4 is like what Guri Huru went on. It's what Imbalance seems to be on. So, a little bit longer for that for the first book. Makes complete sense. It seems like a very reasonable date compared to maybe some of the other ones where like, ooh, it looks like they're probably going to have to change that. This seems about on track to what we expected, so that's actually a pretty positive sign. It is a Tuesday, so it's in the correct format for what they seem to be going for more recently, so that's interesting to know. This will also probably get a digital first release. So anyway, the description. What will it take to stop a war? King Wu's dreams of peacefully transitioning the Earth King into a democracy are in danger when Commander Guan throws his political hat in the ring, hoping to subvert the new system from the inside out. But playing fair was never part of his plan. Guan and Dr. Sheng are using terrifying new technology to cement Guan's win. In a desperate attempt to save the Earth Kingdom from falling back into the dark days of conquest and empire, Korra and Kuvira convince an old friend to return and take the former commander on in the polls. But will it be enough? So, very, very interesting here in that the Part 1 description obviously talks about while Kuvira's trial is going on, the transition to democracy in the Earth Kingdom is causing an issue. That seems to be kind of confirming that it's causing an issue enough to where the different factions in the Earth Kingdom are more or less ready to go to war over this. And I find it very interesting that towards the end of this they talk about it could potentially fall back into the dark days of conquest and empire. I suppose they're sort of talking about the like Qin the Conqueror-esque stuff, or potentially actually maybe pre-Bossing Se stuff of like what was the Earth Kingdom like prior to Bossing Se becoming the sort of center of power. But either way, I think Qin the Conqueror-esque stuff that they're talking about, plus what Kuvira did as well. So that's interesting. New character here, Commander Guan, Dr. Sheng, terrifying new technology that will help him win an election. That's very interesting. Is it like just a weapon, or is it more maybe new technology? Is he like doing something to the votes, or what? That's very, very interesting depending on what it is. And then Korra and Kuvira being the big team up here, I find fascinating because it seems to suggest that whatever happens in the trial, Kuvira is allowed to assist Korra with the threat that's happening. So I get the impression that probably what's going on here is that during the trial, the news heavily comes out that there's basically conflict in the Earth Kingdom, and the only way to resolve it is that, Korra maybe requests Kuvira's help in this, that her punishment will maybe be reduced or something like that if she assists Korra in, helping the transition to democracy, happen peacefully. So basically she does sort of the opposite of what she was planning to do herself and show that she actually does care about her nation and it isn't just like about herself. That's actually a very interesting take. I like that it seems like Kuvira is not just going to be locked into a trial setting for the entire book. She's actually potentially going to get a chance to, go out and be part of a team, at least for a little bit. So that's, I think, super interesting. Yeah, the other really interesting thing They convince an old friend to return and take the former commander on in the polls. So this is obviously Earth Kingdom stuff. So we're talking about someone who is, Earth Kingdom related. Who is that? The fact that this is a Korra and Kuvira, both of them together, convince someone, makes me believe it's probably Su Yin. Because to me, that's the only character who has a connection to both of them that would make sense. Because I don't think it's Toph. I think Toph is past all of that. Why would she want to do this? So it's not her. Plus Kuvira, I never got the impression had a connection to Toph. It's not Batar because he's probably still on trial for stuff, and I don't really think it would make sense for him, having been on trial, to get transitioned into this. And other than that, like other noted Earth Kingdom people, like from Korra era, no one really comes to mind all that much. Maybe I'm forgetting about someone. So Su Yin, I think, makes the most sense because this is a Kuvira-centric book. That Kuvira having to accept that Su Yin is potentially the solution to this. Here is a way for Su Yin to potentially help people with her, strong leadership skills, but in a way where she would accept if she was voted in as leader, where she didn't want to sort of usurp power herself. That could be a good way to develop Su Yin. It allows Su Yin to enter the story and interact with both Korra and Kuvira more, and put her in a, I think, more interesting position to, like we maybe suspected, which was always the thing of like spread what worked in Zhao Fu to the rest of the Earth Kingdom, in that she is this success story of like a leader of one specific part of the Earth Kingdom, and it worked. She's from a noted family. I think that could be the way to kind of turn things around. Now, could it be anyone else? I'm really trying to think here. Because, like, obviously, it can't be anyone from the original royal family line, because, like, the queen is dead, and we don't really know of any, like, other, characters like that. Old friend. I really, no one comes to mind necessarily of, like, a person along the lines of a Zhu Li who would make the most sense to, take up a position like this. So I think Su Yin more or less has to be who they're talking about here. Just because she's not mentioned in the description here. In the preview we have for Runes of the Empire Part 1, Su Yin is in there. So they're at the very least hitting on the Su-Kuvira relationship being an important one. This would actually make sense because they have to convince her. This isn't just a case of like, oh, this person will immediately accept it. Who needs to be convinced? And that is Su Yin, who's kind of initially against the idea of becoming the leader of the Earth Kingdom. But here's a way for that to happen and it not go against her ideals. So very, very interesting. I think there's a lot to discuss just from the description with this one. I'm very interested to see what the cover is. I doubt the cover would spoil that reveal at the end, but we might get a look at maybe Guan, Dr. Shang, but realistically I think the cover's probably going to have Korra and Kuvira on the front, and we'll see who else. But yeah, I'm super excited for Runes of the Empire. Obviously, Part 1 is May 21st, as you can see here. And again, we'll just quickly look at the description here. Decide who to trust, fate of the Earth Kingdom hands in the balance. Eve of its first elections, the Kuvira Stanton's trial. Vestiges of her imperial ambitions threaten to undermine the nation's democratic hopes. So that is an important point to note with the description for Part 2, that potentially Guan and Dr. Shang are related to the Earth Empire in some way. So Kuvira may actually know them and maybe know how to counter them. It's interesting that like Mako, Bolin, and Asami aren't mentioned in Part 2 description, but in Part 1 they talk about how they don't all see eye to eye on the solution. So clearly, potentially Korra is on her own with maybe agreeing to the idea of Kuvira assisting with this. Asami especially would be against that, so I think we could actually get a proper conflict between Korra and Asami within their relationship over how Kuvira is going to be handled. Not exactly sure with Mako and Bolin. Mako, I would lean towards him being anti-Kuvira. Bolin may see some positive because he worked for her, but I'm not really sure. He could, because of the betrayal sort of aspect there, still be against her, but we'll have to wait and see on that. So yeah, I'm very positive going into Runes of the Empire. Part 1 and Part 2 look great. Hope we get the cover sooner rather than later, but I think there was enough to discuss here with the description that I wanted to do this video. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on the description for Ruins of the Empire Part 2. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.